Okay, we have one or two people joining, but I think we'll make a start. Good morning and welcome to this latest webinar from Salton UK Theatre. I'm Julian Bird, the Chief Executive of the organisations, and welcome. We're glad to be doing these this morning. I'm joined by two great people, Emma, our BSL interpreter. And just to say, if you want to use the BSL interpreter, you want to be able to see Emma, then you need to make sure that you're on gallery view rather than speaker view. So just to say, if you want to continue to use Emma as well, please switch to gallery view. And we're also joined by Sam, who is captioning this. So if you wish to see the captions, then please just make sure you've turned them on at the bottom of your screen. So welcome. As I said, I'm going to talk for 20 or 25 minutes, something like that, and then do some question and answers. Thank you for people who've sent questions in advance. I'm going to try and cover all of those off in what I'm saying. But if you would like to ask a question at the end, then there is a Q&A box at the bottom. Please do pop your question in there. Can I just say we have now 420 people on this webinar, so you'll appreciate we won't be able to get through everyone's questions. I'll try and rattle through as many as I can. We aim for this to be about 45 minutes in total, so finish about 1:45 or so. Okay, I'm going to make a start. So what am I going to try and cover today? Talk a little bit about where we think we are at for the theatre sector. A little bit about the guidance that's recently been published, talk around the financial package, the financial support package that's been announced by the government, and the Chancellor's announcements of last week as well. I obviously want to talk around freelancers in everything around the group of freelancers, many of whom are on here. And then talk around kind of media and politics and the other work that's underway. So let me get going. So where are we at the moment? So many of you will be aware that the government have published a 5-stage roadmap with a view to getting the industry back up and running. As of Saturday, we are officially at stage 3 of the roadmap. Stage 3 allows outdoor performances with a socially distanced audience. Stage 4, when we get to it, will be indoor performances with a socially distanced audience. And stage 5 is full indoor performances with a full audience. Slightly to our surprise, they didn't announce a date for stage 4 in the announcements last week. So we continue to push the government on announcements on 4 and 5, and I'll talk a bit more about that later on. Alongside stage 3, which we are at now, the outdoor there will be a series of pilots indoors to test bits of the guidance, entrance and egress, audiences, etc. They're all one-night pilots. We're trying to get those agreed as quickly as we can. The first one may even be next week. We want to get those pilots done so that we can move on to stage 4 as soon as we can. And also alongside that, there are some medical and scientific tests going on, which I'm going to talk around in just a moment. So you'll be aware, just talking around theatres in general, I should say, because there's a question, I'm talking around stages 3, 4, 5, that's specific to England at the moment. I don't think Scotland or Wales have moved on to outdoor performances yet, or Northern Ireland. But with the West End, most West End theatres obviously are not open at all yet, and you'll see different shows are making different announcements around when they may or may not come back. And in the rest of the UK, of course, it's a very mixed picture from people who've cancelled whole seasons, people who've already made announcements that they won't reopen until 2021, whatever. There's the whole question around Christmas. So it's a very mixed picture around what people are intending to do. So this is all predicated on getting going on guidance, which was published on Thursday night last week. This is, as I'm calling it, version 1.0 of the guidance. We expect many, many more versions of the guidance As things become clearer, as the science evolves, as the medicine evolves, we expect there to be more versions of it. There are two major issues in this first version. One is around singing, and the other is around woodwind and brass instruments, where the social distancing requirements are much greater around those two activities. The testing that I mentioned earlier is very much around those two areas, singing and instruments. So this is around, is the level of aerosol production through those two activities more than me speaking as I am now? There is some good scientific studies, particularly around the instruments from other countries in the world. The singing studies at the moment tend to focus on choirs and community choirs, where those reports are not good, let's be honest, but no one is clear if the increased risk is from the actual singing itself or from the community aspect of the choir and the social aspects of the choir. So there is testing underway under the auspices of SAGE, official government tests underway on singing, woodwind and brass, and also ventilation, so ventilation in buildings. Those tests are underway now, and we're told they should report in the next few weeks. And that's when we expect new versions of guidance to be produced. But what we do have in the guidance is rehearsals, training for people like ballet and dance and things like that already agreed. So the other big news of less than 2 weeks is obviously the financial support package that's been announced by the government. It's £1.57 billion in total for arts, culture and heritage. So this is not all money going to theatre. So let me just talk a little bit about the breakdown of that. So of that money, £120 million is going to capital projects. So this is building projects. This is in England, this money, 120 million, and it's basically for building projects that have been delayed or had cost overruns because of the pandemic. We don't think at the moment that will go to any new building projects. It will be for existing ones that are looking to complete. £100 million is going to what you might call the national institutions. So DCMS directly funds some of the major organisations, not in the theatre world. These are the national museums and galleries. So Tate, the National Gallery, Natural History Museum, Science Museum, V&A, all of those will get money directly. £188 million of the money goes to the 3 devolved regions, 33 million to Northern Ireland, 97 million to Scotland and 59 million to Wales. That's under the agreements around when things are agreed for England, how much the money then flows to the 3 other regions, and that will be for the regions and the authorities in those regions and their local governments to decide how that is distributed. So that leaves about £1.15 billion. And that's roughly 80-20 into grants and repayable finance, 880 million of grants, 270 million of loans. Now that will be distributed through DCMS's 4 arm's length bodies. So these are the 4 kind of subsidiaries, if you like. The Arts Council of England being the most important one for our sector, but not the only one. The British Film Institute will for independent cinema, and remember we've got quite a few organisations who do both theatre, have both theatres and cinemas within their buildings. Historic England and the National Lottery Heritage Fund. The thing that we now don't know is the timing, how much money will go to each of those 4, in what proportions, who might be eligible for grants, who might be eligible for loans, how will all that work? Our belief is that information will be out by the end of July, and then application processes will start, particularly at the Arts Council after that, with a view to getting the money to flow. We are pushing the government very, very hard to push the money as fast as they possibly can out to people. So that's the financial support package for the industry, about which we know a lot we don't know yet. But let me say, the 1.57 billion is at the top end of anyone's expectations when we were in discussions. It is a significant amount of money. However, even the Secretary of State has said it will not save everybody, and unfortunately it won't save every job. Last Wednesday, just over a week ago, the Chancellor then stood up in the Commons and made a series of announcements, three areas of which are particularly important and pertinent to our sector. The first of which is the Job Retention Scheme, which he confirmed would definitely end at the end of October. So that was already intimated that would happen, and it will definitely finish at the end of October. And as has had previously been announced and we've explained, employers have to contribute more through August, September, October of the money, but then it will end at the end of October completely. The new thing there was that if an organisation takes on keeps on a previously furloughed employee until at least the end of January, then employers can claim £1,000 from the government for each furloughed person who is then back at work. That's great, but just to be clear, £1,000 is a very small percentage of what you would have paid somebody for the months of November, December, January. So it remains to be seen whether that is an incentive for employers to keep people on or not. Secondly, he made a whole series of announcements around apprenticeships and a kickstart scheme for 16 to 24-year-olds. We remain to get all the details on that and the impact that might have in our sector, but we will of course be looking at the detail of all of that when it's published. And then finally, he announced a V80 reduction, which took effect from yesterday, the 15th of July, through until the 12th of January next year, 2021. The V80 reduction from 20% to 5%, and it does apply to theatre tickets, and it applies at the time of purchase, so not the date of the performance, but if I now buy a ticket today for a performance in the middle of 2021, and I'm buying it from an organisation that's VAT registered rather than VAT exempt, I would only pay 5% VAT on it. There are many, many issues around all of that which we're trying to grapple with, and HMRC only published the guidance on it yesterday, but we're working through all of that at the moment. Now let me be clear that the one thing that you all know that the Chancellor didn't talk around, much to our concern, was freelancers and self-employed. I had one question in saying, why are we not doing more on this? I would assure you we are speaking about this at every single moment we possibly can with government. This morning we've just had the major virtual meeting of the theatre all-party parliamentary group, and we had a whole session on freelancers. I spoke about it. We had freelancers speaking in front of all the politicians. It is our major thing that we are still campaigning on. So freelancers and self-employed have not had anything new announced. For those people who are eligible for the self-employed scheme and got a payment the first time round, we now know that will reopen to apply for your second payment on August the 17th. We don't know quite how that's going to work. For those who applied last time, you pre-registered and were given a date during the course of a week when you could apply. But we think that will start from August the 17th. But apart from that, there have been no changes. So there's no change for those people who missed out last time, and nothing new, I'm afraid. We continue to campaign on that with parliamentarians across the board. You'll be aware there's a group broader than our sector called Excluded in Parliament. Tracy Braben, amongst other people, is very active on that. We're delighted to continue to work with her and many, many people on it. This is one of the most fundamental and important issues, we think, for the next weeks and months ahead. We have done one thing, and I'd like to thank Netflix and Sam Mendes for working with us. We've launched this thing called the Theatre Artists Fund, which is effectively emergency money for freelancers who have not been able to get access to any other money. We've had about 4,000 applications in the first week that it opened. We'll open another round of applications in the future. And Netflix have given us £500,000 to kickstart that. We're now at 1.6 million just a week in, and thank you to many other individuals and trusts who've contributed. We're raising a lot of money quite quickly, and our aim is to help as many people as we can. If there's people on this call who who need help, or you know others that need help, just to remind you that the theatre charities, there's 25 other benevolent charities in our sector who have money and can support you, and that's on our website called theatresupport.info. So theatresupport.info. There's a flowchart on there which will help you know which of the charities can help you depending on what your role is in the sector. But just to tell you, there is definitely a charity that can help you whatever you do in the sector. Also on there, can I just remind you, on that website, theatresupport.info, is all the information about the 24-hour theatre helpline. That is completely confidential. We pay for it, but we don't run it. It's run by a specialist team. We don't know who's called or anything, but that is there. Whatever your issue, whatever that your concern, please do turn to that if you need it. So, as I said, a lot of activity underway, a lot of political work. I mentioned the all-party parliamentary group this morning. I've given official evidence to the Select Committee in the House of Commons and the Committee in the House of Lords. We continue to work with politicians across the different parties. Of course, we're doing a lot of media work, and I think my last 2 weeks I've done more media interviews than ever, particularly around funding and freelancers. We're emphasising now on that, I think, three things that are important media messaging. This is not just us, but we're briefing kind of names, famous people who go on. The three areas are lobbying for these important dates around stages 4 and 5, so we can get back open and get tickets sold and get people paid. We're emphasising a little bit more now on what we can do. So now outdoor performances are allowed. Let's use that as a catalyst to make audiences hopefully feel confident in going to theatre. And the third main area is around freelancers and self-employed, which we continue to talk around. The other things very much we have underway is we have 2 groups on audience research, one for London and one for the rest of the UK, to look at the 2 different areas. And if you are signed up to the mailing lists of any theatres across the UK, you may have started to see plop into your inbox some surveys asking you for your thoughts and your comments. That is all one big initiative led by our working groups to collect thoughts on audience behaviour, which of course for us is how that thoughts and behaviour evolves over the coming months that is all important. Linked with that is a major marketing campaign that will launch at the point when theatre kind of is coming back. One unified campaign to support theatres across the UK as they reopen. And we look forward to sharing more of that with everybody when we get to that point, but that is a big plan ahead. Another huge challenge for the whole sector, and let's be honest, I think it is a challenge, is all the work around inclusion. We are working with Inc Arts, Sultan UK Theatre, as well as other partners around looking at all of that. We need to ensure, I think, that we embed that as we go forward. And that's quite hard for some people, not hard in the theory, but hard in the fact that they're dealing with a crisis and trying to actually keep their organisations alive. So we're looking to try and help people as much as we can to understand the issues and to do their own research, their own reading, their own understanding. And we'll be announcing, I hope, more with Inc Arts and with ourselves as we go through the summer and into the autumn about how we hope we can support the whole industry in that work. I'm going to pause there and take a swig of coffee and let Emma have a rest, and I'm going to turn to some questions. As I said, there's already 16 questions in the box. I'll get through as many as I can in sort of the next 20 minutes. There we go. Well, it's a great first question. The first question is, when you are interviewed on the news, thank you, this has made me laugh if nothing else. When you're interviewed on the news, please can you keep the pink flamingos up in the background? And thank you for everything you're doing. You'll be pleased to know that in media interviews, the pink flamingos are in general there. The only time they were taken down was actually for the Select Committee in the House of Commons, where there was very strict guidance about your background. Next question. I live in Wales, and it's becoming alarmingly apparent that the government £59 million is actually not that at all, and due to how devolved financing works, the money actually looks more like 11.5 million. We heard this for the first time yesterday as well. No, I can't shed any more light on that. But later on today, we have our regular fortnightly meeting with all the sector bodies from Scotland, Wales and Northern Ireland. So the devolved nations, and thank you for someone reminding me I should call them nations, not regions. And we'll be asking them about that today. So I'm afraid I don't know anymore. It was the first thing we heard about it was yesterday. Guidance refers to professionals only, prohibits activity by non-professionals. Do students in conservatoire training count as professionals? Students in conservatoire training will come under education as much as the performing arts. There is work and discussion underway, but we believe, yes, students will be able to get back under those controlled education conditions. To be clear, the reason I believe why non-professionals are not included at the moment is because of the greater risks around that. So if I look at a typical amateur theatre society, they come together once or twice a week to rehearse and then perform. They're not in a professional kind of work environment, a professional fixed team, which produces much greater risks. So that's why that activity is not allowed at the moment. There's a comment about the Wales 12.5 million. It seems it was a researcher's error, and the £59 million stands. That's great to hear. I certainly was told it is 59 million. So, are there any stipulations for organisations to support their PAYE freelancers, especially those who've been on short-term contracts? The answer is we don't know yet. We don't know what strings will be attached to the money that flows through the Arts Council or the other bodies. And whether there will be a requirement on people to make sure that freelancers are somehow part of that package. Question, I'm quite worried about pay for freelancers after all of this, given union minimums aren't reflective of typical going rates. Consultant UK Theatre reassures there'll be no degradation to pay and working conditions. I have no idea is the answer on that. I suspect, and there are conversations underway about the short term of all of that as shows get back up and running. But let me just be clear that, you know, SALT and UK Theatre believe strongly in having union agreements and strongly in working with the unions. I've spoken publicly about that many times, and that is absolutely the intention to continue the work. And it's great to be working with the unions on all of this as well. We'll try and share breakdowns of figures. Absolutely, no problem at all. Will the recordings be available for this? There will be. And thank you for this. Thank you for your comments. We'll be doing others of these webinars. Yes, we do them about every 3 weeks, a series of these. And we will keep doing them. We're very aware that for some people, this is the only kind of real time when the information is brought together in one place. We are absolutely willing to do more of this. Who is speaking to government politicians? A lot of people. There's all sorts of working groups at DCMS level that meet from across the whole sector. I have obviously sort of become one of the key people behind the scenes, which I'm trying to represent everyone as best as I can. But many people are involved in that conversation. In terms of who spoke this morning, we had a range of people from all different organisations. We're absolutely willing to share that with you. It's public who speaks at the APPG. And we, across all of this, have tried to make sure that we've had different freelancers speak to different politicians at different times. So they get quite a broad range of voices speaking to them. In terms of reduction in VAT, does that mean agents will only charge 5% VAT? The reduction in VAT only applies to very specific things in the economy. The remaining part of the economy still has a 20% VAT rate. I do not believe that commission has been reduced from 20% VAT to 5%, I'm afraid. It's only on theatre tickets. Are we asking to extend the range of self-employed? We absolutely are. That SAYS scheme, we keep talking around it. I promise you, we would like to see the government extend it. We've been very vocal about that in everything we've said publicly to the government. We have said that. why do we think it's more important for the weeks and months ahead? I think it's important for. I think it's been important for since day one. Well, not since day one, but since we knew that the self-employed scheme wasn't covering everybody. In our major submissions to the government, we have made that very clear, and the same in our submissions to the Treasury Select Committees. The people who came out of drama schools last summer aren't eligible. Indeed, we've asked that new entrants to the sector be included. That has not been a change they've taken forward. And there is, at the moment, no government support for them apart from universal credit, which is not acceptable. How far in advance do SALT get to know the government's plans for the industry before they're publicly announced? The answer is sometimes we don't know at all. So the famous 5-stage roadmap we did not receive in advance at all. In fact, I found out about it by Sky News contacting our press office with an embargoed press release and saying, would I come on and speak about it? That's how we found out. On the government package, the financial package, I woke up on the Sunday morning to calls and a lot of work that day when it was announced, as you know, under embargo at 10 o'clock on the Sunday evening. So we often don't know in advance very much at all. If a vaccine is approved by the end of September, October, and let's hope, as this person says, the Oxford trial work keeps going, will this give producers confidence to start selling tickets and preparing for the new year? Look, it could. Who knows what the rollout of any vaccine would be and everything else, but clearly a vaccine or a cure, if any of those come along quickly, that's what we need. There has been a talk of a separate government fund to support marketing the relaunch of theatres, particularly to encourage people to visit theatres even when they're scared. So it's not a government fund. This is, as I said, a unified campaign we are working up across the industry about the relaunch of theatres and to give consumers confidence, very much underway. Another question about agent commission and 5%. As I said, I think I've answered that. A question around will the 1.57 billion flow to freelancers through organisations? As I said, we've talked to Arts Council about that. We're waiting for, as I said, we think at the end of July that will become clear. A question around SALT's work with unions on temporary wage cuts. As I said, I don't think we're lobbying, as you would say, for wage cuts. There are very active conversations going on with the unions around how we get back to work. Particularly if, for example, performances are not 8 times a week when it starts and all of that. As I said, those discussions are underway between all the unions and our committees. I promise you we're trying to look after everybody. We've got to make sure that when productions open, that they can stay open. That's one of the important things. And of course, it goes on to the following question, following the cancellation of the SALT drive-in tour. We found out about that yesterday, as you know, and that was the whole project on drive-ins has been cancelled by Live Nation. So the music promoter, Six, was one of the shows amongst many that was going to be in those venues. Our understanding is it's primarily been cancelled because of their fear of the risks of local lockdowns around some of the sites they were planning on doing it in. Of course, we remain completely concerned around that. But also, it's great to see some other outdoor theatre getting going, the Minack in Cornwall, and the great news of the Open Air Theatre in Regent's Park announcing now a new plan for August and September, which was announced yesterday. Could we press the government to say what criteria for stages 4 and 5 would be? In other words, what conditions need to be met for those stages to be reached? That's absolutely what we are doing. I promise you, we don't have answers on that. We are pushing on it. Do we expect or hope that any of the money, the government funding money, will reach those working on commercial productions? At the moment, we've been told that it will be open, some portion of that will be open to all parts of the sector, including commercial. And just to be clear, around 70% of the work touring the UK is commercial, so venues need the commercial producers back up and running. How that will be split between commercial, subsidised and everything else, we don't know yet. Thank you for someone's thanks on the work we're doing. Is there general consensus from pantomime producers with what will be happening this Christmas, such as kudos? The answer is we don't know that yet. Michael Harrison has been quite public in saying that Qdos's deadline is right at the beginning of August to make the decisions. We need lots of things understood, don't we, by then? We need the financial stuff, but crucially we need to understand if the government are going to get to a stage 5 date by then. It seems that artist agents are falling through the gaps in terms of any support. As I said, if you are in need of money, please do go and look at the theatresupport.info. There are charities that are able to help you. As I said, we are continuing to campaign for those people that have fallen through the gaps from the government. We won't stop that. We're very aware of the gaps, I think. Question around some indoor theatre planning to open this autumn. Some indoor theatre, if we get to stage 4, when we get to stage 4, that's indoors with socially distanced. Yes, there are some shows ready to go. Mousetrap want to get back into socially distanced audience performance in October, Sleepless in Seattle, etc. There is still a plan for that to be done. How are we taking forward risk assessments for being COVID safe? We're working across the sector with many different bodies, ABTT and many others on all of that. We know that probably just like performing companies and buildings have to have fire officers and health and safety officers, people will have to have a COVID officer, and we're busy developing training around that for the industry at the moment. We hope to pilot that in late summer and roll that out in the autumn. Question around insurance. I don't have any update for you at the moment beyond to say that a lot of discussion is going on between the government, Treasury, DCMS, us, Lloyd's of London, etc., etc. And that links onto a question around cancellation, and that's where insurance is incredibly important. Once again, about how the money would flow through venues and buildings to freelancers. As I said, that's very much under debate at the moment. Let's wait. Do I have any comments on the Lloyd Webber tests at the Palladium Theatre? So I said there's going to be some pilots. One of the pilot events is at the Palladium, and that's testing a lot around some of the technology that LW are looking at, but also audiences and ticketing. It's one of several pilots, as I said, and of course we are evaluating all of that and looking. I think the important thing is we also need to make sure that whatever is in the guidance can apply to all venues across the UK, not just the very largest like the Palladium, but ones that are affordable and usable by everybody as well. And the Palladium trial is great as part of that work. What happened to the period of consultation prior to the guidance and the reports of the working groups? So our working groups worked hard. DCMS told us there was going to be a very big period of consultation with the industry. They then changed their mind on that. There was some consultation, not nearly as big as we thought. As I said, though, this is only the version 1.0 of the guidance. There will be many further iterations of it. Will Saltooka Theatre endorse any peaceful process to raise public awareness of the issues? Just to say, we will support people who are standing up for the rights of freelancers. I can't answer a general question around that, but we will continue to work with all the groupings who are doing that. I, genuinely, I have lots of friends. My other half is a freelancer, so I genuinely think we have a grasp of some of those issues. A question about, is there a person within Salt who acts and advocates for freelancers solely? No, we are all doing it, I promise you, and taking it seriously. Movement directors are not named or represented by equity. And apologies if you think we don't talk about movement directors. We tend to put choreographers and movement all in one breath. You are absolutely eligible under the New Theatre Artists Fund, and that is very clear. We don't have any specific guidance yet for smaller venues, but more will come out from the tests and the pilots. Why are we not joining to mount a legal challenge to the government? Look, we may get to legal challenges in the future. We've not ruled anything out. I'm not ruling anything in or out at the moment. Let's see what happens. Has the idea of universal basic income? Yes, we've discussed that. The government have rejected that, as you know, from us and many, many other people. Another question around how the money will flow to freelancers. Universal basic income. So quite a few of the questions are the same. Have we discussed with government reviewing tax returns for 1920 rather than only 1819 to help who fell through the cracks? Yes, we have. Thus far, they have rejected that, I'm afraid. We have proposed that. We also proposed a validation scheme to validate new entrants to the market. I'm afraid that hasn't worked at all. How are we working with Incarts? Well, our work with Incarts is only for a few weeks now, although we've been working with Amanda Parker in the past. And as I said, we'll announce more around that and the new working groups we're going to have and our work across the sector. And that inclusion work is across all the work, not just on stage, but all the others. Are there guidelines available for youth theatres and organisations working with young performers? Yes, there are some guidelines or emerging guidelines around participatory activity, and they're not specific just to performing arts, but they're specific to everyone who works in kind of community work, particularly with young people. What would be the current anticipated impact on the theatre sector of a second spike? Well, clearly for the whole economy, any sense of second waves or spikes is horrific, isn't it? So let's hope that doesn't happen. What we seem to all be hearing, isn't it, is that they're looking at local management of such spikes rather than national. With regards to next year's tax bill payments, will they be softened? I don't know. We have actually asked that question. There's no response yet. My guess is that will all be part of the autumn budget announcements around everything. Question, are we working with other government departments like DWP? Yes, we're working with all sorts of ones, actually. It's coordinated through DCMS, but we are working across many government departments, BEIS, Treasury, Work and Pensions, amongst others. Is there any government guidance on auditioning for international work? There's guidance on auditioning in general. Doesn't matter whether it's for international or not. That's part of the rehearsals and pre-production. And the Casting Directors Guild are doing some more work around that, which will be published very, very soon. And there's another task force committee group organised by the government making decisions on about the 1.57 billion. So what we know on that is it's not a task force. We believe that they've announced that there will be a group of people with specific expertise around our sector and around finance who will help work with those four underlying bodies, including the Arts Council, around the distribution of the money. We know no more details than that about what the makeup of that group will be or what its role will be at the moment. I'm a freelancer that offers accessibility services to theatres. Will we remember so it doesn't become a low priority? Yes, can I just say that we want to continue the work we've tried to embed so hard on access in all its many guises. And I'd like to thank Michelle Taylor, who's been working with us amongst others on that. We really want to make sure that the work on that is not lost as we get to reopen and go from there. Let me just take a drink. Information, not a question, on the vaccine. Senior medics have already said that the vaccine would in first instance go to the NHS, key workers and groups in society who are considered more at risk before it's available to the population at large. Also, any vaccine likely to only be 40 to 50% effective as with the flu vaccine. So while it will be a massive positive step if one of the vaccine does become available, it isn't a 100% solution. Thank you for that comment. So I'm just trying to see if there are new questions rather than someone's asked about equality impact assessment. As I said, that's been part of the conversations on the guidance. There's quite a few questions around how can we make sure around diversity and diversity in all its sense, differently abled. How are we trying to do that? As I said, we are look, it's not easy. I'm not going to claim I've got all the answers. I don't have lived experience of that. All I can tell you is we are trying to talk to the right people. We're trying to gather information. We're trying to make sure that those people have a voice at all different levels of the conversation at the moment. I'd love to tell you I don't have all the answers on that. I wish anybody did, but we are trying to work hard on it. As I said, trying to embed this as we emerge out of this. It is not easy, particularly as organisations are at the point of failure. So we're trying to work with people around all of it. There's a question about how can we make sure those communities get access to the funds. As I said, that is all part of, we're waiting just like everybody to know what the distribution of the money will be and what the criteria will be. It's a question about Christmas, which I think I've talked around. Environmentally sustainable way, absolutely. I think that may well be part of the criteria. Let's see. Access, disability, inclusion, economically sustainable, socially sustainable are all things we need to embed as we get out of this. Has my other half been excluded from the government support? No, very fortunately not. As a self-employed person, has been eligible for the self-employed scheme, not to a huge extent, but has had some. But I have many friends who have not been eligible. One of my best friends has fallen through the gaps, like so many of you, and has had no support at all, and in fact is working in Asda in order to make ends meet at the moment. Are the funding distribution figures available online? As I said, the breakdown I went through is available online. It's on the government website. The funding breakdowns below that, we don't know yet. Are the unions involved in developing the COVID officer role? They will be. It will come under the Entertainment and Events Working Group at DCMS level, which has both equity and the Musicians Union on. Small limited company freelancers, yes, that's part of our work on freelancers as well, people who've missed out from that route. Another question about the legal challenge, and as I said, we are working as hard and as fast as we can around all of this. I'm sorry if some of you feel it's not fast enough. We are doing everything we can to work, and as I said, we're trying to engage with the other bigger groups in the economy, like Excluded UK, which is around 3 million freelancers, to make a bigger voice. Would you say that theatre is going back to square one? No, as I said, we want to keep embedding the strides that have been made on things like access as we go forward. There's a question about theatre tax relief. As I said, we have been lobbying the government on that. We've sent them a lot of information. Our belief is that tax reliefs may be looked at as part of the autumn budget. Let's hope so. How much notice are we expecting the government to give us to reopen? I'm afraid I don't know that. Everything seems very last minute from them. So, yeah. This is being recorded. You'll be able to access it. I'm just looking through to see if there are new questions. I'm sorry, because we're running out of time, and there are... do we know when the Arts Council guidelines will be released for the applications? No, but as I said, we're envisaging the end of the month is what we're hearing. What can you all do? Keep talking to your MPs, particularly around the freelance issue. There is a momentum in Parliament around it. If you haven't written to your MP personally, please do so. It's so important to keep the pressure up on that. Thank you for your thank yous from some of you. Thank you. We are, all I can say is I know some of you feel we're not working, or one or two of you on this. I don't feel we're working fast enough. We're doing everything we can to work as fast as we can and challenge the government at every opportunity. We also have to work collaboratively with officials in the civil service, and to say that all I can say to you is we have been working 7 days a week and all hours. If you knew the hours that my team have been putting in, and many people on our boards and stuff, it is quite extraordinary. So thank you to them on my behalf for everything that we're doing. a question about can we share templates for writing to MPs, and someone has put up the Freelancers Make Theatre group, which we've been working with. There is a template on their website, but if you need one, also do ask us. We have some as well. Okay. A final question, which I think it is worth just following, which is what is considered open air? So there is no clear definition of outdoor, but what I can tell you is that big tops and marquees are considered open air, provided you increase the ventilation by taking the sides off or opening the flaps or whatever. There is a question on the government website around that, but that is considered open air and outdoor performances. Okay, thank you for many questions. I've answered 75, would you believe, overall, so thank you. And thank you for your comments. I promise we will continue doing every bit of work we can, as will many, many other people. And we will do more of these webinars as we go forward into the future, trying to keep you up to speed. Thank you for joining us today. My thanks to Sam, who's been captioning, Emma, who's been our BSL interpreter. And as we go forward, I guess the main thing is please do stay safe. Personally, we'll keep fighting on behalf of all our sector, and we look forward to seeing you and speaking to you soon. Thanks very much.